What if I told you that some of the foods sitting in your kitchen right now, foods you've been eating for decades, foods your doctor has never even mentioned, are silently accelerating aging inside your body, inflaming your joints, spiking your blood sugar, and quietly pushing your heart closer to the edge? And what if some of these foods are marketed as healthy? What if some of them are even fruits? Today I want to have an honest, evidence-based conversation with you, the kind that takes too long in a 10-minute clinic appointment. Because after age 50, your body is fundamentally different. The rules of nutrition change. What your body tolerated at 30 can now quietly destroy it at 55. Today, I'm going to walk you through the specific foods and fruits you should be avoiding or drastically reducing, and I'm going to back every single recommendation with peer-reviewed science. No opinion pieces, no wellness blogs, real research published in real journals. If you're over 50, or if you love someone who is, this may be the most important video you watch this year. Stay with me until the end, because some of what I share will genuinely surprise you. Why the body changes. After 50. Before we get into the specific foods, let's take 60 seconds to understand why the rules change. After age 50, several critical things happen inside the body. First, your metabolic rate slows by approximately 1 to 2% per decade after the age of 20, but this decline accelerates after 50. A landmark study published in Journal of Science in 2021 by Poncer et al. Analyzed over 6,000 individuals and confirmed that energy expenditure remains relatively stable between ages 20 and 60, but drops more steeply in the decades that follow. Your gut metabolizes food more slowly, your kidneys filter less efficiently, and your liver processes toxins with less agility. Second, hormonal changes, the decline of estrogen in women and testosterone in men, affect how your body stores fat, maintains muscle, regulates insulin sensitivity, and manages inflammation. This hormonal shift means that foods which were once processed normally can now trigger cascading inflammatory responses. Third, your gut microbiome, the 100 trillion bacteria living in your digestive tract, becomes less diverse after 50. A study published in Nature Journal by Clayson et al. Found that microbiome diversity in older adults is strongly correlated with health, frailty, and longevity. Certain foods devastate this diversity and accelerate gut aging. With that foundation in place, let's get into the specific foods. I've organized them into categories to make this easier to follow. 1. Ultra-processed foods, UPFs. Let me start with what I consider the single greatest dietary threat to people over 50, ultra-processed foods. These include packaged snacks, instant noodles, breakfast cereals with added sugar, ready-to-eat meals, soft drinks, processed meat products like hot dogs and salami, and most fast food items. A groundbreaking cohort study published in the British Medical Journal in 2019 by Rico Campa et al. Followed over 19,000 Spanish adults and found that consuming 4 or more servings of ultra-processed foods per day was associated with a 62% higher risk of all-cause mortality compared to those who ate fewer than 2 servings. But why are they particularly dangerous over 50? Ultra-processed foods typically contain advanced glycation end products, a term you'll hear me use several times today, often abbreviated as AGEs. These compounds form when proteins or fats react with sugars, particularly during high-temperature cooking. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at clearing AGEs. They accumulate in our tissues, in blood vessels, joints, kidneys, and the brain, and drive chronic inflammation. A study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society by Semba et al. Found that serum age levels in older adults were significantly associated with physical disability, frailty, and mortality. The researchers concluded that dietary reduction of AGEs should be considered a therapeutic strategy in aging. My advice: if you are over 50, I would strongly encourage you to aim for a dietary pattern where ultra-processed foods represent less than 10% of your daily caloric intake. Read labels. If a product contains more than 5 ingredients, many of which you cannot pronounce, put it back on the shelf. 2. White bread, white rice, and refined grains. Here is something many of my patients don't expect to hear. White bread may be worse for your health after 50 than a small piece of chocolate cake. The reason is the glycemic index. a measure of how quickly a food raises blood sugar. White bread has a glycemic index of approximately 70 to 75, comparable to pure glucose. In younger people, the pancreas can compensate with a rapid insulin spike, but after 50, insulin sensitivity naturally declines. Repeated blood sugar spikes from refined carbohydrates contribute to insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, and abdominal fat accumulation. The pre-dimed study, one of the largest and most cited nutrition trials ever conducted, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, followed over 7,000 adults aged 55 to 80 and found that a Mediterranean-style diet rich in whole grains and low in refined carbohydrates was associated with a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events. When it comes to grains, the advice is straightforward. Always choose the whole grain version. Oats, brown rice, quinoa, whole wheat, and barley are not just substitutes, they are genuinely protective. They are high in fiber, which feeds your gut bacteria, slows glucose absorption, and supports heart health. 3. Added sugars and sugary beverages. If I could remove one thing from every over 50 diet overnight, it would be sugary beverages. Not alcohol, not red meat, liquid sugar. Here is why. When you drink a sugary beverage, a soda, a fruit punch, a sweetened coffee drink, an energy drink, the sugar bypasses the normal satiety signals in your digestive tract. Liquid calories do not register as food in your brain the way solid food does. You consume the sugar, get a glucose spike, and feel hungry again within an hour. Over time, this pattern devastates insulin sensitivity. After 50, there is another dimension: cognitive health. A study published in Alzheimer's and Dementia Journal found that higher dietary sugar intake was associated with increased amyloid beta deposits in the brain, a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. The researchers measured blood sugar markers and brain imaging data and found a dose-dependent relationship: more sugar, more amyloid. My recommendation: the World Health Organization advises limiting free sugars to less than 10% of total energy intake, and ideally below 5%, which is roughly 25 grams or 6 teaspoons per day. A single can of regular soda contains approximately 39 grams. You've blown your daily budget before you've even had breakfast. 4. Processed meats, a WHO Group 1. Carcinogen. I want to say something clearly. Processed meats, bacon, sausages, hot dogs, ham, salami, corned beef, smoked meats, and most deli meats have been officially classified by the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer as Group 1 carcinogens. That is the same category as cigarette smoke and asbestos. Not because they are equally as harmful, but because the evidence that they cause cancer is equally as definitive. The WCRF and AICR Continuous Update Project, which synthesizes evidence from hundreds of studies, found that consuming 50 grams of processed meat per day, that's roughly 2 slices of bacon, is associated with an 18% increased risk of colorectal cancer. After 50, this risk is compounded by age-related changes in the gut epithelium, the lining of your colon, which becomes more susceptible to DNA damage. Nitrates and nitrosamines in processed meats are particularly problematic. They form reactive nitrogen compounds in the gut that can directly damage DNA in colon cells. Beyond cancer, a large prospective study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine, now JAMA Internal Medicine, journal followed 121,342 individuals and found that daily red meat consumption was associated with a 13% increased risk of all-cause mortality, while processed red meat was associated with a 20% increased risk. If you are over 50, my advice is to eliminate processed meats entirely. Replace them with fish, legumes, eggs, or poultry. If you eat red meat, limit it to 2 or fewer servings per week, and choose unprocessed cuts prepared by grilling, baking, or stewing rather than frying. 5. Salt and high-sodium foods, the silent hypertension driver. Did you know that nearly 70% of adults over 65 have hypertension, high blood pressure, and that the majority of sodium we consume does not come from the salt shaker but from packaged and processed foods? The top sources of sodium in the modern diet are bread, cured meats, pizza, poultry products, soups, sandwiches, and cheese. Not necessarily foods we think of as salty. As we age, our kidneys become less efficient at excreting sodium. This means that the same sodium intake that was tolerable at 30 can become genuinely dangerous at 60. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine by the Global Burden of Diseases, Nutrition, and Chronic Diseases. Expert group estimated that excess dietary sodium intake was responsible for approximately 1.65 million cardiovascular deaths globally per year. The American Heart Association recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, and ideally closer to 1,500 milligrams for adults over 50 with hypertension or heart disease. To put this in context, 1 cup of canned soup often contains 800 to 1,000 milliliters, nearly your entire daily budget in one bowl. Read nutrition labels. Choose low-sodium versions. Cook more at home using herbs, spices, garlic, and lemon as flavor enhancers. Your kidneys and your heart will thank you. 6. Alcohol, the age-dependent toxin. I know this section may be uncomfortable for some of you. Many people over 50 enjoy a glass of wine with dinner, and there has long been a belief, fueled in part by the French paradox theory, that moderate alcohol consumption is cardioprotective. I need to update you on where the science now stands. A landmark study published in The Lancet analyzed data from 195 countries and 28 million individuals. It concluded, using Mendelian randomization to reduce confounding, that the safest level of alcohol consumption for overall health is 0 drinks per week. After 50, alcohol is metabolically more harmful for several reasons. The liver's ability to process alcohol declines with age. Body water content decreases, meaning blood alcohol concentration from a given dose is higher. Alcohol disrupts sleep architecture, particularly slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, which are critical for memory consolidation and cellular repair, at a time of life when sleep quality is already challenged. A study in JAMA Network Open found that even light drinking was associated with increased risk of several cancers, including breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and cancers of the oral cavity, pharynx, and esophagus. I am not telling you that you cannot enjoy an occasional drink. I am telling you the evidence and asking you to make an informed choice. If you do drink, limit yourself to no more than 1 drink per day, and ideally fewer than 5 per week. 7. Trans fats and repeatedly heated oils. Industrial trans fats, partially hydrogenated oils found in margarine, packaged biscuits, commercial pastries, and fried fast food, are among the most damaging substances in the modern food supply. The WHO has committed to eliminating industrial trans fats globally by 2023, and while significant progress has been made, these fats still appear in many packaged products. A systematic review published in the British Medical Journal by D'Souza et al. Found that trans fat intake was associated with a 34% increase in all-cause mortality, a 28% increase in coronary heart disease mortality, and a 21% increase in cardiovascular disease incidence. Beyond heart disease, deeply fried foods present another problem after 50, acrylamide. This compound forms when starchy foods are cooked at high temperatures, above 120 degrees Celsius. Acrylamide is classified as a probable human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. French fries and potato chips are among the highest dietary sources. When cooking at home, choose olive oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil for high-heat cooking, and avoid reusing oils repeatedly, as oxidized oils generate free radicals and inflammatory compounds that are particularly damaging to aging cardiovascular tissue. 8. Fruits to limit or avoid after 50. Now I know what many of you are thinking. Fruits? Surely fruits are healthy? And the answer is nuanced. Whole fruits are generally excellent foods. They contain fiber, vitamins, antioxidants, and phytonutrients. But over 50, particularly for those managing blood sugar, kidney disease, or heart conditions, certain fruits and fruit products require careful attention. 8a. High glycemic tropical fruits, in excess. Mangoes, pineapples, lychees, jackfruit, and very ripe bananas are high in fructose and have glycemic indices that can spike blood sugar significantly, particularly when consumed in large quantities or as juice. A study published in Diabetes Care found that consumption of fruit juice, even 100% fruit juice with no added sugar, was associated with an increased risk of type 2 diabetes, while whole fruit consumption was associated with a reduced risk. The fiber in whole fruit is what buffers the glycemic response. Remove the fiber, as happens with juicing, and you are essentially drinking sugar water. The key message is not to eliminate these fruits, their micronutrient content is valuable, but to consume them in moderation, in their whole form, never as juice, and to pair them with protein or fat to blunt the glycemic response. 8b. Dried fruits. Dried fruits, raisins, dates, dried apricots, dried cranberries, dried mango, are essentially sugar-concentrated versions of the original fruit. 1 cup of grapes contains about 62 calories. 1 cup of raisins contains over 430 calories, nearly all from sugar, and most commercial dried fruits have additional sugar added. For someone over 50 managing prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, or metabolic syndrome, which affects approximately 1 in 3 adults in this age group, dried fruits can significantly dysregulate blood glucose. My recommendation: if you enjoy dried fruits, limit them to a small handful per week and choose unsweetened varieties. 8c. Grapefruit. The drug interaction risk. This one is critically important, and it is rarely discussed. Grapefruit, and to a lesser extent Seville oranges, pomelos, and tangelos, contain compounds called furanocoumarins that inhibit cytochrome P450-3A4, a key liver enzyme responsible for metabolizing a wide range of medications. A review published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal by Bailey et al. Identified over 85 medications with the potential for serious interactions with grapefruit. These include some statins, atorvastatin, simvastatin, blood pressure medications, felodipine, nifedipine, immunosuppressants, cyclosporine, certain anticoagulants, some anxiolytics, and HIV medications. When grapefruit inhibits the enzyme that should break down these drugs, their blood levels can rise dramatically, sometimes to toxic levels. Given that the majority of people over 50 take at least 1 prescription medication daily, grapefruit is a fruit you should discuss with your doctor before consuming regularly. This is not theoretical. There have been documented cases of hospitalizations and deaths from grapefruit drug interactions. 8d. Canned fruits in syrup. Canned fruits are convenient, but most are packed in heavy syrup, essentially fruit submerged in liquid sugar. A half cup of canned peaches in heavy syrup contains nearly the same sugar as a full can of cola. Even light syrup versions can contain significant added sugar. Additionally, the canning process destroys or significantly reduces heat-sensitive vitamins, such as vitamin C and certain B vitamins. And many cans, though increasingly less so, have interior linings containing bisphenol A, BPA, an endocrine-disrupting compound associated with hormonal disruption and cardiovascular disease. Choose whole, fresh, or frozen fruits over canned whenever possible. If using canned, look for varieties packed in water or natural juice with no added sugar. 9. High-fat dairy and saturated fat. This area of nutrition science is one of the most vigorously debated. For decades, we were told that saturated fat, found in butter, full-fat cheese, cream, and fatty meats, was a primary driver of heart disease. More recent research has complicated this picture. What is now clearer is that the type of saturated fat matters, and that what you replace it with matters even more. Replacing saturated fat with refined carbohydrates, as happened in the low-fat dietary era of the 1980s and 90s, does not benefit cardiovascular health. But replacing saturated fat with unsaturated fats from olive oil, nuts, avocados, and fatty fish does reduce cardiovascular risk. After 50, I recommend choosing low-fat or moderate-fat dairy products and prioritizing plant-based fats and omega-3 rich fish as your primary fat sources. Greek yogurt and fermented dairy products like kefir are particularly beneficial because they also support gut health through their probiotic content. 10. Diet sodas and artificial sweeteners. Many people over 50 switch from regular soda to diet soda, believing they are making a healthier choice. I want to present you with the emerging evidence that should give you pause. A large observational study published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal found that artificial sweetener consumption was associated with increased risks of obesity, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular events. The mechanism may relate to disruption of the gut microbiome and altered insulin signaling. Furthermore, in 2023, the WHO issued new guidance advising against the use of non-sugar sweeteners for weight control, noting that long-term use does not provide sustainable weight loss benefits and may have adverse metabolic effects. Erythritol, a popular sweetener in keto and sugar-free products, was the subject of a 2023 study in Nature Medicine that found an association between high blood erythritol levels and increased cardiovascular risk. This area of science is evolving and warrants serious attention. Summary and practical guidance. Let me bring this together for you. We have covered a significant amount of ground today, so here is your practical checklist. Foods to eliminate or minimize after age 50. Ultra-processed foods, packaged snacks, instant meals, fast food. These drive systemic inflammation and accelerate biological aging. White bread, white rice, and refined grains. Replace with whole grain alternatives. Sugary beverages and foods with added sugar. Empty calories that drive insulin resistance and cognitive decline. Processed meats, bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats. Classified carcinogens with documented mortality risk. High sodium packaged and processed foods. Hypertension risk escalates dramatically with age. Alcohol, metabolized less efficiently after 50. No safe level for cancer risk. Trans fats and deep-fried foods, associated with cardiovascular mortality and potential carcinogen, acrylamide formation. Grapefruit, if on prescription medications. Serious drug interaction risk. High glycemic tropical fruits and all fruit juices. Consume whole fruit only, in moderation. Dried fruits in large amounts. Concentrated sugar with microbiome disrupting potential. Canned fruits in syrup. Choose water-packed or fresh and frozen instead. Artificial sweeteners and diet sodas. Metabolic and gut microbiome disruption risk. What to eat instead. A brief guide. Fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel. Rich in omega-3s which reduce inflammation and support brain health. Leafy green vegetables, the most nutrient-dense foods available, associated with slower cognitive aging. Legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, excellent protein source with gut microbiome boosting fiber. Extra virgin olive oil, the cornerstone fat of the Mediterranean diet, anti-inflammatory and cardioprotective. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries are low glycemic, high in antioxidants, and associated with reduced dementia risk. Nuts and seeds, particularly walnuts, almonds, flax seeds, associated with improved lipid profiles and longevity. Fermented foods, plain yogurt, kefir, kimchi, support gut microbiome diversity. Whole grains, oats, quinoa, barley, brown rice for steady energy and gut health. Closing remarks. I want to close with something that took me many years in clinical medicine to fully appreciate. Food is not just fuel. Food is information. Every meal sends molecular signals to your cells, your genes, your immune system, and your brain, signals that either accelerate disease or protect against it. After 50, you are not simply older, you are wiser, more experienced, and more equipped than ever to make powerful decisions about your health. The research is clear. Dietary changes made even in your 60s and 70s produce measurable, significant improvements in cardiovascular health, cognitive function, metabolic health, and longevity. A study published in the British Medical Journal found that adults who improved their dietary patterns in midlife, even as late as their 60s, had significantly better physical and cognitive health outcomes in their 70s. It is never too late. Every meal is a choice, and every good choice is a small investment in a longer, healthier, more vibrant life. If you found this video helpful, please share it with someone over 50 who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel, leave your questions in the comments below. I read and respond to as many as I can, and check out our other videos. I'll see you in the next one.